Act on Instinct. This is an iconic Command and Conquer track. It's the first track you hear when you start your first mission, and it stays with you all the way till the end. Even as you unlock other tracks, it's always in circulation. This track, I think, was selected to be the starting song for the first mission because of the fact that it kind of pumps you up a little bit. It's got a nice driving beat to it, cool groove to it, and it kind of has a vibe about it. I didn't personally select it to be the first track you hear. My audio director did, but for good reason. It worked really well. And I remember having a lot of fun creating that track. Because of the fact that I'm a drummer first and foremost, that obviously is where the driving beat comes from. It's something that I thought sounded cool. And of course, it was programmed using a sampler, drum samples, and I basically played it into the keyboard the way that I felt it as a drummer, and that's where that comes from. I remember also creating a distorted like drum loop to texture the underneath that the main sounds of the drums that you hear, so that they both kind of come together, and it sounds like it could be processed, in a lo-fi way, but at the same time, there's still clarity to it, so it's kind of both at the same time. And I thought that was cool. The Ensoniq ASR10 keyboard or rack that I had at Westwood Studios was my main sampling source. Anytime I sampled stuff or created sounds that I wanted to sample into it for playback, that was usually my go-to. I had a Roland S760 sampler too, but I used that mostly for playback only of sample libraries that I had purchased. And that was kind of the core combo of a lot of sounds that I used in that day. In addition to that, I had a Roland JD990, and that had a lot of great cutting-edge synth sounds of that era as well. And that was sort of the basis of the first Command and Conquer. So with those three main pieces, I had also hooked up live guitar and played that to some of the tracks. But Act on Instinct doesn't actually have guitar on it. It has a distorted bass sound on it. And that was, of course, also played on the keyboard. I had a decent sounding bass patch, and then I ran it through some really good effects for that distorted, gritty sound, and that became the foundation of the groove. I'm pretty sure I came up with the drums first and then added the bass on top of it, and that was the foundation of the song. And then I would just kind of load up different patches to change instrument sounds to keep it interesting. So when you get to like what I call possibly the verse of the song, the bass patch switches to something that's more synthesized and has kind of a filter on it. Then after that, it goes back into the distorted bass with a synth sound that has also some filter effects on it. Gives it that kind of washy sound and kind of reverbed out a bit, which sets up the chorus of the song that I'm calling it, which has the main lead of the keyboard in it, and then the hook, ultimately, the hook of the song. And I remember writing that pretty naturally. All of those parts just kind of came together. I'm pretty sure I completed that song in a short amount of time. I would say within a couple of days. I originally recorded it with voice samples on it. But at the time, along with a handful of other tracks, it was determined by the team to be a little confusing with all of the unit responses that were being spoken back to you and different things within the game that were important to hear as dialogue. So we ended up taking the voice samples out of those songs. And so the first original version of the game, which came out on PC, that is the version you hear. It's just instrumental. And really, when you take the voice samples out of it, it strips it way down to just the bare bones of the tune and just the groove. Because obviously, when you only have bass and drums on certain parts, the voices were meant to kind of fill the gap and make it interesting with, the whole 90s, kind of sampling era of odd quotes and things like that going on. I was just kind of tapping into that. But The version that did contain the voice samples, however, did emerge later when we went and did versions for the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation. So people did get to hear both, and people experienced the game firsthand with different experiences. So there was always kind of arguments in the community of like, no, the original had the voices. No, it didn't. Yes, it did. And it was just kind of a confusion that was created there because, in fact, originally it didn't, but still for the other platforms, that would be the first time people on those platforms experienced it, and therefore they feel that that was the first. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, as long as you enjoyed the song and experienced it on whatever platform suited you, that's all that counts. But yeah, that is the story of Act on Instinct.